Today we're taking a look at South Africa's underlying malaise. As you see, traffic lights go out, the power is unreliable, roads full of potholes. And the problem isn't really lack of money. It's a government that seems to lack the will to fire loafers and make sure our taxes are used efficiently. This is the headquarters of the Department of Home Affairs, the largest and probably most important bureaucracy in South Africa. Home Affairs issues documents like these, documents that entitle us to claim the privileges of citizenship.
So just how easy is it to get a false ID book?
Over the years, TV investigations have repeatedly exposed rampant corruption at Home Affairs. Crooks find it easy to buy South African documents on the black market. For law-abiding citizens, on the other hand, dealing with Home Affairs is often a nightmare. Home Affairs is also infamous for dumbfounding backlogs and supernatural bungling. South Africans often find themselves struggling for months or even years to obtain vital documents.
Good morning, Daily Sun.
The Daily Sun is a riotous tabloid that boasts around 5 million readers. Publisher Dion du Plessis says they have a serious beef with Home Affairs.
The worst manifestation of it was a man that pulled a gun on Home Affairs officials to get attention. He'd been trying for years to renew his ID document, without which he could not get a job. Had failed for years, marched in, pulled a gun, and held the director in the regional office hostage.
I just told myself I need that ID.
You just wanted that ID?
Yeah, just to touch it, just to have it.
A few years back, Daily Sun editor Themba Khumalo instituted a column titled Home Affairs Horrors. It's a weekly avalanche of stories about lives blighted by mistakes and agonizing delays. If we give you the powers of a god to run Home Affairs, what do you do?
Honestly, I will fire everybody and get people who know what they have to do.
We're on our way to visit someone who's had it with ineptitude, corruption and bumbling. Hi, it's Al Jazeera for Trevor. Trevor Tutu is the scion of one of South Africa's most famous political families. His father, the Archbishop, won a Nobel Prize for his role in the freedom struggle. Trevor himself was once a true believer, but then a workman fell off the roof of his house, and that changed everything. The government ambulance failed to show up, so Tutu asked a private security service to care for the injured man. 5 hours later, a fireman rang his doorbell.
And when I asked them, what are they doing here? We wanted an ambulance. They say, no, we're the only emergency vehicle working northern Johannesburg at the moment. You know, they can't even run a bath, let alone run a country.
You know, until a few years ago, there seemed to be a taboo that made it almost impossible for black people to criticize a black government.
It was absolutely impossible. I mean, you know, if we were blacks sitting together, you know, I mean, we could pinpoint all the causes and stuff, but, you know, you would never, ever dare breathe a word outside. But these guys are now so palpably bad that you can actually show the case of the corruption, Zimbabwe, AIDS, the lack of delivery, particularly to the poorest of the poor.
You know, the best thing that's ever happened to this country is opposition. It's opposition. You know why? Because too many people are getting caught with both hands in the jar. Opposition keeps every politician in check. They want everything. Where's the slip? Where did you go? What time? With who? Why? This is my taxpayers' money. I want it all. I want it all. So I'm not saying vote for the DA. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying appreciate them because they keep the country balanced.
Cape Town is South Africa's oldest city and in some ways its most interesting. Beyond those mountains lies a country where every municipality is struggling and hundreds are said to have lapsed into a state of near total collapse. Cape Town is different. It's racially diverse, politically fluid, and at the moment it's run by an extraordinary woman with an extraordinary title, Best Mayor in the World. We're on our way to Cape Town City Hall where some sort of confrontation is underway. The mayor wants to introduce a rapid transit system that will enable commuters to travel safely and cheaply. The city's minibus taxi drivers don't want to know.
We want taxi operators to be central to this process. So we want them to hear about the benefits. But if you march out before you even prepare to listen, then there's a problem.
Just to put this in context, I used to live in Cape Town until a few years ago. There was a time when it was quite common to open your morning newspaper and hear that public transport buses had been attacked, machine gunned or firebombed, essentially by taxi associations who wanted the commuters' money and didn't want to share it with a cheaper mass transit system. So I think that what we've seen here today is like a continuation of that kind of, what should I call it, action-adventure capitalism with guns.
Madam Mayor, one of the things the guys were saying is that they will in fact fight this to their end. That's what they're saying. What are you guys then going to do if these guys continue to oppose you and they continue to disrupt your gatherings?
In a constitutional democracy, you can't have people who weren't elected by anybody deciding that they are going to prevent a sphere of government from fulfilling its constitutional duty. Then we're going to have chaos, and in those circumstances, the duty of the state is to hold people accountable and to protect its citizens, and that is what we will do. The state must act with all the force at its disposal.
The army used force to quell previous outbreaks of taxi violence. Madam Mayor says she won't hesitate to call in the troops again. Helen Zille is a former journalist who cut her teeth in anti-government newspapers during the apartheid era. After liberation, she became a politician here in the Western Cape. Tasked to run the province's schools, she established a reputation for hard work and ruthless efficiency. Journalists called her Godzilla. Zille became Cape Town's mayor in 2006 and proceeded to do such a good job that an international urban affairs think tank voted her the world's #1 mayor. Now she's attempting to convince the rest of the country that her brand of clean, effective government is best for everyone.
We will be part of national government in the near future.
The DA is a sophisticated Western-style party. It is, ironically, the only South African party that truly embodies the non-racial ideal, at least in the sense that its following is thoroughly multicultural. But its leaders have always been white, and many voters struggle to see beyond that.
I will never ever turn out to the DA. Never ever in my life. Even though I can die and wake up tomorrow, I will never ever vote for another party, except the parties that liberated me from the apartheid regime. It's not so simple for me to change for it.
In townships like this one, DA support is growing, but it's still in single digits. Blacks aside with the DA face ostracism and intimidation, and Zille sometimes has to go to extraordinary lengths to prove that she is truly just one of the people. Here we see her giving the shirt off her back to a potential supporter. But don't you feel that the race card is played against you by your detractors?
Well, being white is the only issue that the ANC plays against me again and again and again. They've run out of ideas. They don't have any policy challenges to what I say, so it's the fact that I'm white. That's the issue they raise all of the time. Now, the irony is that I may be white, well, so what? It's nothing I can do about that. And I enjoy being who I am. I'm making no apologies for who I am. But I've never lived in a white group area in Cape Town. I have always lived in areas where there are a majority of people of colour, quite unlike the ANC's black leaders. They make sure they live in the smartest areas, drive the smartest cars, live in the most expensive houses, send their children to private schools. I've never done any of that.
In 1994, Zille's party polled 1.6% of the vote. In 10 years, that rose to 12%. And this year, who knows? She's doing especially well here in the Cape, where mixed-race people seem to be warming to the DA message.
South Africa en die Weskaap behoort nie aan die ANC nie. Jou en my taxgeld is nie hulle persoonlike geld nie. Hulle steel die geld, hulle verryk hulle self en ons word armer en die dienste suffer daaronder. Sê vir die ANC nee en sit en vout hulle uit. Hulle is korrup en hulle gaan dit meer korrup word. Sit vir 'n skelm so Jacob Zuma daarbo, dan gaan ons geen geld hê nie, dan is ons nog in Zimbabwe.
A week after this rally, Zilla's party crushed its opponents in a local by-election, winning 85% of the vote.
People respond to the corruption that's happening. People respond to when houses are allocated, a select few that has not been on the waiting list supersedes everybody else that's been on the list for almost 20 years. They cannot get social grants. Those are the kind of issues that affect these people's lives. They are desperate people. They need some kind of hope. And the fact that they respond so well to us simply because they see the DA being that hope and freeing them from the corrupt elements within the ANC, so they also can benefit from what the state has to offer.
Open opportunity government does get rid of corruption, does get a city out of bankruptcy, does deliver services to the poor, and does make a difference every day to improve the quality of life. Just one example, in the central city of Cape Town, through our partnerships and through our policies, we've brought down crime by over 90%. Cape Town is the only city countrywide with a living core of growing economy and huge investment on the back of good local government, and we are now replicating that strategy and Tala Plaka.
That's a pretty attractive speech, but in a way it's irrelevant. Arguments aren't going to win this election. There are deeper forces at work. Professor Lawrence Schlemmer is one of South Africa's leading social researchers. In recent years, his polls have shown something that might strike outsiders as incomprehensible: growing disappointment with the ANC's performance in government, and at the same time, unshakable, even growing support for the ANC itself.
Late last year, we did a special little study of this in order to try and get to the bottom of this. And one of the interesting things that came out, for example, is that people said that virtually all the promises that had been made in the previous election had been broken. Yet, when we ask people why they're going to vote for a particular party, they will talk about the promises they make. We said, explain this. And the people said, yeah, this is difficult, but the way we feel is the following. We know that the politicians are going to break their promises. We have no expectations of great service delivery. But at least the promises show that the politicians love us.
ANC leaders bridle at the suggestion that sentiment is the only thing that keeps them in power.
We hear this comment that the ANC has failed, and we wonder where in the world one would describe the provision of 3.7 million houses as failure, or where in the world you would describe 88% of the country having electricity as failure.